Hello and welcome to this video brought to you by Louis Art. As always, my name is Emmanuel Okafo and I hope you guys are having a wonderful week. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create this scale transition effect made popular by the character Mystique in the X-Men movie. We'll be using a combination of the geometry node and the proximity weight modifier inside Blender. This is quite beginner friendly and some advanced users can get some tip and trick from this. So if you're interested in that, let's get started. While watching, please subscribe to this channel if you wish to see more from me, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. So let's get started. We are going to get started by selecting the character we want to use for this effect, which is Susan the monkey. Scale her up a bit and move her above the grid. I'm going to set her shading to shade smooth, and also we're going to add a subdivision modifier. Well, just to make sure everything works perfectly for the viewport and render, we want to make sure we set this to the same value. And now we can go ahead and add the driver object. We're going to be using the cube to drive the effect. I'm just going to move it above Susan and go to the viewport display property. Under the displayers, I'm going to set it to wire so I can see through it. Also, to prevent any further problems during render, we're going to go to visibility and uncheck all of this. We don't want it to be rendered at any instance. Okay, so next we can select Susan and go and add the vertex weight proximity modifier. Once you add that, we can select the driver object which we added as the target object. And for the vertex group, we need to create a vertex group for the effect. For that, we're going to go to the vertex group, enter edit mode. Make sure we have all vertices selected that we want to apply this effect to. Then click plus and assign it. Next, we can go in and select the vertex group from here. Next, we have a couple of settings we'll have to play with to kind of get the desired effect. The first one is the proximity mode, so we want to switch it from object to geometry. We'll have some option vertex edge face, we want to set it to face. One way I used to test the effectiveness of the vertex weight proximity modifier is by using the mask modifier. For the vertex group, I'm going to set it to group. Next, we can move this and see how it's influencing it. Right now, we're seeing nothing. One thing we can do is to play with the lowest value. So if you move the slider, you can see the effect taking place. So now we can move this up and down and we can see the vertex group that is working. So if you're getting an effect like this where this is still coming up, you want to adjust this some more till you have it disappear completely. So we want it to go in a linear fashion, like this. So now we're happy with what we have and we can move on to the next step inside geometry node. I'm going to delete the mask modifier and let's bring up a new window and we'll set this to geometry node. By the way, I have this cool script that helps me switch automatically from the shaders to geometry node, which will come in handy later. So if you're interested in this, let me know in the comment. While we're at it, if you've made it this far, please go to the comment and write "Hello beautiful people." I'll appreciate that and it will increase the engagement of this video. And don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Okay, here in the geometry node, we want to click on new geometry. We can call this scales effect, and we'll go ahead and add an instance endpoint. So before we go ahead, I want to explain how these effects work basically. The vertex weight proximity modifier is generating a dynamic mask for us whenever we move the driver, and the geometry node is going to generate the instances of the scale effect, and we're using the generated mask to mask off the generated scales object inside geometry node. So that's the basic effect. Every other thing is just addition. So what we're trying to do in geometry node right now is to generate those instances for the scales. So to create the scales, we'll just add a simple plane, rotate it X 90 degrees, go into edit mode, click on subdivide, and we'll select this edge loop, scale it out like this and scale it out like this. And we have this somewhat leaf shape. You can make any custom shape you like and it will work. The complete setup for this is we'll need to add a solidifier modifier. We don't need the thickness to be so much because we just need it to create like a two-phase material setup. So let's create those materials. So click on plus 2 times, create 2 materials, and for one of them I'm going to just give it a red color, just different color from each other. So we have red and blue color, and here in the modifier for the scale, we want to make sure we go to the material and set this to value to 1. So it's going to give us red and blue. So make sure after you've created any object or working with the whole system, you want to always go and apply your rotation and scale. This is a nice practice with Blender when you're working with cloth simulation, particle simulation, any type of simulation, to make sure Blender is working with the accurate, the most recent information about your object. Okay, so now we can unmute this and let's add those instances. For the instance, we can just drag in the plane and set it as the geometry instance. And we can see it's inserting the scales on the point. Next, we need to scale this down, so I'm going to drag this out and search for the value node. So we can uniformly scale this up like this. So we can always change the scale later, so we'll just leave it like something like this. So next, we want to be able to see our Suzanne mesh, and the way to see her is to combine the original mesh and combine it to the instant mesh. So we'll go to geometry, join geometry, and add it right here. We'll get the original mesh and combine it with the instance mesh. And here we go. For the next step, we want to bring in the mask we created with the vertex with proximity modifier. And the way we'll call that is using attributes. So we can go to geometry, read, name attribute. So from here, every selected object has different attributes. If we click on this, we can see there are a couple of attributes here. We have sharp edge, position, UVs, and group. This group is basically this vertex group. So if we go ahead and change this to mask and come here, we should be able to see mask. So we can select that and want to change this from float to color. If we connect the attribute into the selection for the instance to on point, nothing happens because we need to move this now. So because we changed the name earlier, we need to switch this to the new updated name. And once we have that, it works. As we move this, you can see it reveals or kind of does inverse of what we want. We want it to add the scales, but right now it's deleting the scales. Okay, so to fix that, we'll basically add a utility color and then color ramp. And we can switch this or to do the inverse. So you can always play with this value to get any desired result. And we're gonna add another color ramp here. Let this do black. So moving this slider and adjusting them will help you create the effect. You can also play with this to kind of control it even more. So we're basically moving the mask and just updating it for it to create what we want. Okay, so now the effect we have is if we move this. So for this extra one, what we can do is move this closer, and cut it off. And we have this now. So it's basically playing with the mask. So it's going to probably vary for different object and different scale of object. So now we've used the mask to isolate certain region of the generated scales. But right now you can see it doesn't feel nice. It feels very thick. I don't know how to put it. It doesn't feel smooth enough. So we need it to feel smooth. The way to do that is for us to kind of create a nice transition of scale. So at this edge here, we get it smaller and it transitions into the bigger scale, and it does it from on the top and on the bottom. To create that, we'll go to a matte and add a matte node, switch it from add to multiply, and we'll connect this into this. So just doing that, we can see we have that nice transition. The middle remain bigger and the edge remains smaller. This is basically why I'm using the vertex weight proximity, because of the range, we can create nice fall-off. And now if we scale it, you can see it feels a lot more better compared to the previous. And we can scale this some more. Okay, so next we need to fix the rotation, because currently the rotation is all just laying flat. They have no direction. and they are not copying the normals of Susan. To do that, let's just move things around. To do that, we need to handle this rotation value. So for that, we're going to add, just drag this, or you could just basically click Shift A and search. So we'll search for sample nearest surface. Okay, and we want to switch it from float to vector. So we plug it there. For this mesh, we need to connect the mesh we want to sample from, and in this case it's Susan. So we are getting Susan and putting it as geometry. Next, we want to sample the position of the normals of Susan, since we want the rotation of the instance to be based off the normals of Susan. So we'll add that. And finally, let's get align YOLA to vector, so that's basically it. So we want to switch it from X to Z. And this should go into the vector, and once we do that, it will look good. Okay, so now we have it rotated based off the normals of Susan. So we want a way to be able to rotate this instance, because we also need, as it scales, we also want to get a nice revealing of the other color with rotation. So to do that, we can rotate this and rotate X, and you can see it kind of flips it. So to recreate that, we can rotate this instance object, which is scales. So we can add a transform geometry, and we can play with each rotation values to create different effects. Let's see if we set this to X. Okay, so leave it on Z and leave this on auto. So this is the node setup just before we continue. If you're recreating and copying my setup, you can have that now. Okay. So to automatically have the driver control this rotation, what we'll do is go to the items and copy the Z as a new driver. And then we can select this and paste it here on the X, paste as driver. So now if we rotate this, it should do that automatically. Right now, I'm not seeing enough of the blue color. So I want it to transition from, let's say, blue to red. So what we can do about that is to play with the timing. So I'm going to right click here, open driver editor. Make sure you have this transform node selected, and we can see the driver settings. So we can come here, generator, we'll add that, and we can try -1. Okay, so it starts from blue and slowly transitions to red. So I want the red to be obvious right here. Okay. So you can play with this. You get what you want. You can just play with different rotation to create different effects. You can add drivers. Since this is going to just be like a brief transition moment. So there you go. If you want this to increase, if you want to increase the size or the amount of the scales, you can add more subdivisions right here. So you go to geometry, operation, mesh, operation, subdivide, mesh. Okay, so the more subdivisions you add, the more dense it's going to become. And we can always come here and adjust this. Okay. I'm gonna experiment with something now. Let's say if we don't want this eye to be included, so maybe we can remove it from this. Yeah, so that works. So if you don't want any parts to be, if you want to preserve the eyes, you can always use that to remove the eyes area. Okay. So for the final one, we want to set up the material for the color. We want to expose some data to the material setup so that we can use it for shading. Let's go to the material and add a new material for Susan. So we'll add the mist. So this is basically what you can use for if you have different materials. You can still use this. I'm just using a color node. I'm going to add an import attribute. Let's just get attribute. So let's create a new attribute. We'll call this fade. Okay, and then we'll use the factor as the blend. Set this to red and blue. Okay, but right now this attribute doesn't exist in Blender, so we need to create that. We'll go back to geometry node. And we'll create it from this information right here. So if you click on Ctrl-Shift-Click, you'll get the preview, but you're not seeing nothing because you need to connect geometry to this. Okay, we can grab our color ramp, and I'm going to reset this node. We'll plug this in this and make this preview. So now if we adjust this, we are creating a new mask based off the transition. So if we move this right here, you should be able to see. Just adjust it. So this color, this black is going to kind of go down alongside the effect, and we'll use this as a mask for the material. This closer. Right. Okay, so let's delete the viewer, and since we have all the information, to expose this, you just need to get this output and just hit it out in the group output. And right here in the geometry tab, output attributes, we can just paste the name we created in the material. So we can copy this and paste this name. And that's that. We've created a new material attribute for the material. Make sure everything is okay. So factor, and there you go. So let's set up the scales material. So we have this as blue, so we can drag this here, and we have this as red. It's gonna start out as blue. Probably maybe I'm gonna make another tutorial because I created like a demo on Twitter where I basically created a mask group for just the geometry node so that we don't influence this material part. Yeah, I'm going to make sure everything is assigned while we do this, so we don't have to extend this tutorial more than necessary. Okay, so we can see it starts out as blue. So I want this to be red. So an easy way to do that is if we select the scale, we can move this up. Assign it. Here we go. So it's gonna start out as red, and slowly we see the blue kind of vanish out. At this point we can still even keep adjusting it since it's like a procedural. So this is the effect. We can control the factor of the material using the color ramp. And you can actually just keep pushing this. For example, let's add just a random texture, scale it up slightly. Okay, and then mix, and we use subtract. Okay, and then we're getting some cool result like this. We can try multiply. Anyways, yeah, you can really get into it and kind of create. At this point, it's just using mask to mask stuff out and create various effects. Yeah, so that will be it for this tutorial. And if you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you wish to see more from me, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And I hope this was helpful. Also, like I mentioned, if you want me to make the script available, let me know in the comment. And don't forget to comment hello beautiful people if you stay to this moment. And yeah, that'll be it. Bye for now. See you next time.